All right. Hi, Daniel. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, my name is Daniel Keith Austin. I live in Johnson County, Kansas. I have my own side business of dog walking and pet sitting. I love acting and singing and animals and nature. And I am a children's book author, a recent children's book author, as a matter of fact.
And you shared your children's book. It was give me the whole title. It was Chelsea. I remember that. It's
Chelsea's New Beginning.
Chelsea's New Beginning. Okay. And what was that? What is that book about? Just for our audience.
So it is about a golden retriever puppy who was initially adopted by a family that has a young boy, and the young boy doesn't want her and has made it clear to his parents that he doesn't want her. So they give her up to an animal shelter, and she experiences loneliness, isolation for the first time in her life. She does find a friend to confide in during her time there, and then she is adopted by a young man named Nathan by the end of the story, and that actually will set the rest of the series in motion, of her um, spending her life story with that family, because it's going to lead to a series where it's her whole life story. Series will be called Chelsea the Golden Retriever.
Chelsea the Golden Retriever and her adventures there. So, what inspired that story?
Well, I've worked with dogs for many years. I've always loved dogs. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with learning about dogs and other animals. And it was my ambition to have pets and encourage responsible pet ownership. I had a real golden retriever named Chelsea, who was the best dog I ever had in my childhood.
Okay, so is Chelsea there based off of that same dog?
She is based on the same dog. However, Chelsea's New Beginning is entirely fictionalized.
Yeah. But it's a way to pay homage to your pet, right?
Yes, but
Awesome.
the character of Chelsea is reflected from my actual Chelsea in real life.
So some of her personality traits are maybe reflected in the story,
Yes.
but hopefully she didn't have as hard of a life, right?
No. She had a good life while she was with us.
So you said this is the first book in the series. Have you published any other works, or is this the very first one? And
This
only
is the
work you've ever
first
published?
book I have ever published, and there are definitely more books coming. I have my next two books ready for publication. They are already illustrated, and I've written up to 6 stories right now. I really need to be writing more because this is a whole series. I definitely have solid plans for many things in this series to come, and one of the big plans will start in the third book called Chelsea and Benjamin, because Chelsea is going to meet Benjamin, who is Nathan's autistic brother. Nathan is her permanent owner. Benjamin is, first of all, based on my real brother, Jeremy, who is severely autistic and cannot talk. Chelsea is going to see the torment he is going through and want to help him, and that is going to lead to her becoming a therapy dog.
Awesome. So that's going to be an interesting tale to not only encourage good pet ownership, but also to encourage awareness for issues such as autism and other mental disabilities like that, right?
Yes.
Now you mentioned that you're also an actor, and you seem very artistic from what you just said.
Yeah.
Um, do you use all of your art to send a message like that?
I got into acting because I love storytelling and I love being in stories. It's kind of hard for me to say if I intend for my art to send a message, just because this is my first time I've ever published a book. But I will say that my whole intent is to raise awareness for responsible pet ownership, compassion for animals, and and awareness and compassion for people with disabilities such as autism.
What plays have you ever been featured in? What other acting or artistic things have you done?
Well, I was in choir starting from 5th grade up until my junior year of high school. I will say that I haven't had as much of a chance to be on stage as I would have liked, just because I had priorities in order to gain adult independence, really. But the shows I have been in, I've been in The Wizard of Oz chorus role, Much Ado About Nothing. I was a messenger. I've been in Jekyll and Hyde, Pirates of Penzance, Sound of Music as chorus roles. Probably the biggest roles I have had so far, the messenger in Much Ado About Nothing and Glad Hand in West Side Story. Even though in West Side Story, my number one dream role, period, is actually Tony, and that is one of my biggest ambitions is to play that role.
Why that role particularly?
When I got West Side Story for my 15th birthday, I first saw it in 8th grade choir, and I asked my mom to get it for me for my next birthday. And when I first saw it, I really liked it, but then when I actually sat down and like watched it, I was like, boom, fell in love with it. And I've always been, I guess, because I'm a hopeless romantic in real life. I've had strong feelings for women who were very special to me, and I just wanted to like really serve that outlet on stage, which also goes into, I see myself like in leading man roles like that. Like Romeo and Romeo and Juliet is another role I really want to play, and West Side Story is basically Romeo and Juliet. So
Yeah, it's a modern retelling of that same story. So you identify as that main leading character in those sort of roles, right?
yes, yeah.
Then how does acting translate into storytelling in the sense of writing books and trying to raise awareness like you are for responsible pet ownership?
I'm not sure really that they have much to do with each other. They're just two different passions of mine. Responsible pet ownership is just something that I want to encourage more from pet owners, because way too often I see people who have dogs that have a lot of stress and don't really know how to behave in a public setting. And especially since I've worked at doggy daycares, there's just lots of I've had dogs where their social skills just left a lot to be desired. And if I if I needed to keep like a calm yard, like where everybody's getting along, and there's just those dogs that don't, I don't want to say cause trouble, but just working in a setting like that, that it's much more of a common problem than I thought. And actually, that's another way I got inspired to write Chelsea's New Beginning, because I initially thought about, hey, why not write about dogs, children's books about dogs going to doggy daycare? I don't know of any other author who's written about that. So that went from that to, hey, why not just make this Chelsea's life story, a whole series of life story? And she is going to doggy daycare in a lot of the stories, but that's not all it is, like I initially envisioned.
So you start, so the story starts taking on a little bit more of a life of its own, exploring different facets, right?
Yes.
Isn't that always amazing when the creativity of a story, you start off with maybe a simple premise like I want to tell and help people be more responsible with their pets, and then it starts taking on more of a life of its own, right? Isn't that amazing?
Right. And so far, I've even experienced starting out writing one story, and it kind of veers off in a different direction than I initially envisioned. So I decide to just so they end up like splitting into two separate stories, because otherwise it would just be too long and too complicated to follow.
Yeah, you're like, I've got to cut this off somewhere. I've got to get to that one story point.
Yeah. So yeah, that's actually the case with my second and fourth book. Actually, my second book was initially going to introduce the horse characters to Chelsea, because Nathan has horses. Original plan was to make it to call it Chelsea and the Cats, because it's about her interaction with the cats in the book. And then when I started like introducing the horses, I thought, yeah, let's probably save this for a separate story and just focus on what's going on with the cats in this second story. So yeah, the fourth story is basically the introduction of those horses that I wrote, and that in the direction I end up going with that.
So it was just to narrow down the story to the key points that you wanted to focus on, which was the cats and the horses. You wanted to focus on those individual points instead of having it all convoluted into a huge story that was just kind of unwieldy then, right?
Yes, especially since Chelsea's New Beginning ended up being kind of a long book for a children's book. I've had people tell me that it's pretty long. Honestly, though, that could be an advantage because because you could use it as a transition book for kids who are too old for picture books, but are just now getting into chapter books.
I could see that book being a perfect segue for that. Something a little bit longer, but not and it still has pictures, it still has visuals in it, but
Yeah.
Not so long that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm reading, Dostoevsky or somebody like that, right?
Yes, and of course it does have some longer passages on some pages, and some words are a little bigger than some words you'd expect to find in a children's book, but that could also help them with learning those words and what they mean, like expanding their vocabulary.
Which is always good with early readers. I've got a couple of young kids myself, so I understand that building their vocabulary is kind of hard at times, but they pick it up. They'll see a word in a book and they'll be like, "Hey, how do I pronounce this?"
Yeah.
Then you gotta explain that to them, which then gives them a whole frame for that context. That's one way that art, like writing, is a great way to expand the world and help people to see different perspectives as they learn different words, different meanings, and different contexts of situations, which, like you've said, you're doing with your books in raising awareness for responsible pet ownership. And as you've said, you're going to do with Chelsea and Benjamin, or Meets Benjamin, you're going to expose new issues in a different fashion from a different perspective that people may not have been able to see before, which is always helpful, right?
Right. I consider it a great thing when a kid's looking at a book and they run into a word they don't know and they ask their parents what it means. That's something I think should always be encouraged.
Mm-hmm. Well, it creates a good bond there, but then it also, then there's, as they're expanding through the books and learning more in your books about the world, they also could be learning about more difficult situations and how to address it, but also getting exposed to it in more of a safe environment where they can ask somebody that they love, "Hey, what does this mean? What does this character who's autistic mean? Why was that kid so mean to this dog and didn't want to play with him? I love our doggies. So why didn't this character want to play?"
Exactly. That's also one of my intentions, is to raise questions for kids to ask, especially getting back to those hard lessons in life. We already have a really big one in Chelsea's New Beginning where she is given up to an animal shelter, and I want kids to I want to raise awareness for that with kids and get more of them interested in animal rescue.
Well, most of our animals have come from rescues. So one of them was literally, they were barn cats.
Oh, that's awful. It's horrible.
They actually went to good homes though, so they're sweet kitties. But
Yeah.
it happens, unfortunately.
Yes. I have two cats that when they were kittens, they came from a feral cat community.
But they adopted you. They're okay with you.
Oh yeah. With they definitely I think chose me when I came in to see them. Ivy, she's I think a Maine Coon mix at least. When I held her, she took to me basically right away, and she's just like the sweetest girl. And Iris, she's kind of a nervous. She's a nervous cat. She when I first held her, the volunteers warned me that she may not be ready for adoption because she hadn't really been accustomed to people. And when I hold her, she just looked at me and with a look in her eyes that kind of said, "Can I trust you? Can this lead to something good?" That was after I held one kitten who was just kind of whatever, like as I was holding her. I knew immediately when I held Ivy that I was going to adopt her right away. So it was down to Iris and this other kitten, Ida, who was the meh kind of kitten. And if I had the means, I would have just adopted all three of them. I just don't have the living space or the resources to have more than two pets right now. So I chose Iris.
And you took them home and adopted them into your family. I can see where the inspiration for these books comes in. Are the cats that you're talking about in your second book, are they based off of any of the cats that you have currently?
No, because I was writing the Chelsea series before I adopted these cats, and that's another thing. My book was actually first published back in 2019, and republished it as a second edition in order to get it on the bestseller list, which I did. The cats that are in my book series and that are Nathan's cats are actually based on the cats I used to work with at the local cat clinic, because those were the cats that were clinic cats. So I just made them Nathan's cats.
You said clinic cats. I'm familiar with that term. Can you explain that?
Cats that just live at the animal hospital, the cat clinic.
So they were just hanging out there and then get adopted by Nathan in that case, but were based on other cats in your life, right?
They're not clinic cats in the book series, but they are the clinic cats in real life.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
No worries. Yeah.
Okay. So far, of the works that you're working on and that you've already talked about, which one do you think is your favorite out of them?
I would say probably Chelsea's New Beginning is my favorite so far. And there is one coming up that I really like, but I want to keep it a surprise for right now. But it is based on someone who is very special, very important to me, and the book is dedicated to her. And I will say it's going to be book number 6. So when that comes out, when you count out the books as they come out in order, book number 6, that is who I'm referring to.
Some big things on the horizon then, right? In these books.
Yeah.
I love hearing how the creative process is guiding you through this, how it's takes on a life of its own. You're started with the cats, and then you started introducing the horses, and then you're like, no, this should be a separate book. I love hearing that from the creative process. Even you saying how you started with one concept, and then it kind of goes in a way that you weren't ready for, but you liked it. Mm-hmm. I love hearing that from all the people that I've interviewed, is that there's you go in with a game plan, and then the game plan kind of changes along the way. Is that ever frustrating to you, or is it always just kind of like, I'm discovering the book as well with the audience?
I would say the latter option. I find it pretty exciting, actually. I don't find it frustrating.
So why is that so exciting when you're discovering the book? Can you explain why that's exciting to you in those sort of tales?
Because when I took writer's workshop in high school, one of the things I was taught is that the characters tell you how the story is going to end. You may think you know how the story is going to end, but you actually don't. And it's just the joy and the fun of just finding out as you go along.
Awesome. Yeah. So you got to find out, the characters get to tell the story. You're just the means of which to put it down to paper.
Yes.
In that sense, right? Now, do you usually do this on a computer and you type it up, or are you pencil and paper kind of person?
Pretty much. I type out all my stories on Microsoft Word, but I do write down story ideas, story titles in a notebook that I have.
Just ways to keep track of it. I definitely understand that. Okay. So you got a lot of books coming up. You've got already, I've heard, you mentioned 6 plans. Are there plans for more beyond 6?
Yes, because it's her life story, I'm thinking there will be hundreds of books. My estimate is probably, and I even have plans to make this an animated series as well. And I'm thinking like each season, each episode will have each book will have its own episode in the TV series that I want to produce someday. And I'd like to have 20 episodes per season. So every year that Chelsea lives, it's like 20 books. That's how I'm planning it right now, and that's subject to change.
Average dog's lifespan is what, 10, 14 years? Somewhere in
Yes.
there?
Different breeds of dogs have varying spans. Usually, smaller dogs have longer lives than bigger dogs. Even that has its exceptions. I think golden retrievers live to be like 12 to 14 years.
So you're talking 15 years, 20 books, 20 episodes for that. That's a big undertaking, but you seem like you've got a plan for books just going forward, right?
Yeah.
Usually the way I like to finish these is I like to ask some short, what I call lightning round questions for these interviews, just some quick things just to kind of get you, show some of your favorites and things like that, okay?
Okay.
So we'll do that. I'll ask the question, just give me the first answer, okay?
Okay.
So, what's your favorite food?
Spaghetti.
Spaghetti, okay. What's your least favorite food?
Pickles.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
What's your least favorite color?
Probably light brown. I've never thought of that, actually.
Okay. What's your favorite thing to wear on a cold day?
Probably just long sleeves.
What's something that you've always wanted?
Something that I have always wanted. It's lots of things, really, but probably a horse.
Okay, that's a very unique one. What's the favorite thing that you actually own?
Definitely my cats.
All right. Ivy and Iris, right?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be and why?
Time travel. Because my life kind of turned out in a way in which I really wish I could go back and change a lot of things. And when I saw the movie About Time, not to be confused with the Time Traveler's Wife, because both those movies star Rachel McAdams, but About Time has time travel portrayed in such a way that that is exactly how I wish I could time travel.
Isn't that the one where he has to go to a space by himself and then he just kind of focuses really hard on the time that he wants to go back to and then he can leap back to it?
Yes, literally all he has to do is go into a small space like a closet or something, close his eyes, think of the time and day in his past, and then boom, he's there. I totally want that. And my second one would be super strength, like Samson from the Bible.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Daniel, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. It's been a little bit of a work to try and get to this point, but I really appreciate you sticking with me. So thank you for coming on and talking about your book and raising awareness for the issues that you were talking about. Those are very important issues that you get the opportunity to expand on and help people to see from a different light. So thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you very much for having me on.